All right, Charlie, good to see you back from the weekend and in full effect here on Bloomberg Radio. We'll have more from Charlie Pellet in about 20 minutes, watching the Monday trade here. Merger Monday, and everybody's in a good mood, even though the government's still closed. Nothing's actually changed since last week. We were up on Capitol Hill on Friday evening on the late edition of Balance of Power, and it was so quiet in the city. No traffic coming in this morning either. The weekend, pretty chill around here. Not even any National Guardsmen, at least that I bumped into. And certainly no members of the House. They're not coming back for another week. They were supposed to return tomorrow. Mike Johnson said apparently there's no point because we already passed the bill, remembering that the Republican-led CR did pass the House. That's the so-called clean CR. It has now failed in the Senate, I believe, 4 times. So we're going to go for a 5th one today. And Speaker Johnson is in town, and some members of the conference are here, others are not. Some want to just have a show of, let's say a show of force, but at least be present and accounted for as things close up. A lot of senators were at Sea Island, Georgia over the weekend raising money. Mike Johnson this morning speaking through the media to Democrats. Here's what he said.
We have one plea and one plea alone. We need a handful of Democrats to stop the madness, reopen the government so that we can get to these critical debates about the year-end policy decisions with regard to the further reforms to health care. Plain and simple. I'm anxious to get my folks back. And look, I want to bring the House back into session and get back to work, but we can't do it till they turn the lights back on.
Well, he could have them here. And we'll speak in about a half an hour, by the way, with Nicole Malliotakis, the Republican from New York, checking in from the home district. They all probably would like to come here, but it's the Senate that's in play right now. And again, they're going to do it again. They'll take swings at both of these bills. Both are going to fail. And so we've entered this weird Groundhog Day swirl that may feel familiar to some here in Washington. And who needs Bill Murray when you got Nathan Dean? And he's got the vest on too, even with all the luck of the Bloomberg Intelligence Fleece vest. We're still closed now. Day 6, Nathan Dean, our chief U.S. policy analyst. It's great to see you, sir. Welcome. You run odds on reopening or just closing?
No, at this point,
there's no odds on reopening.
We're not going to do odds on this one because right now both parties still feel like they're winning. Now, I would argue that it's better to, it's more about like the less of the losers. But like, really, both parties are feeling good right now. We saw polling over the weekend that suggested that independents were more blaming the Republican Party for this. We've seen polling from Republicans that have come out and said, look, we've already passed the clean CR. We've done our job. It's up to the Democrats. And when both parties are feeling good, you're in a stalemate, and they're just going to sit and wait it out. Now, what can ultimately change that calculus? I think it's the paychecks. The government workers' first paycheck is on October 10th. I don't think that changes the calculus, but the military is on October 15th. That ramps up pressure, I think, to get this done and get this reopened. Now, Polymarket is at a 71% chance of the government reopening after October 15th. I wouldn't take, I think that's fairly consistent with the thinking I've heard around town. But I'll just throw out there the big catalyst that everybody's waiting for is these potential firings coming from the Office of Management and Budget. Yeah. If you see widespread layoffs, I could see a scenario where the Democrats go back into their shell and just say, we're not negotiating.
So that changes the rules.
I think that changes because, look, President Trump had some Truth Social posts about Grim Reapers and stuff like that. It's a messaging argument. And if independents are going for the Democrats right now, I could see some widespread layoffs ultimately playing in their favor. But who knows? I mean, we'll have to see.
You a Blue Oyster Cult fan? We were playing Blue Oyster Cult on Friday when he posted the video. Russ Vogt is the Reaper. There, if you're with us on YouTube, look at Trump with the cowbell. I mean, that's pretty classic. Unless, of course, you're the one getting fired. Yeah. The idea, though, was, hey, don't make us do this. We don't want to do this. But when you see Russ Vogt is the Reaper, what are we supposed to believe here?
Well, I think it's also the carrot and stick mentality. I mean, obviously you have the White House coming out and saying we're going to, play drums and have, the Grim Reaper there. But, you also saw some language from the Senate, John Thune this morning, and even Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying, look, we just need a couple more Democrats. And if you go back to last Friday, I mean, there was a gaggle of bipartisan senators. Sorry, there was a bipartisan gaggle of moderate senators on the Senate floor discussing I wouldn't be surprised if those discussions continue.
Sure.
Because, look, we know that the government can't stay shut forever. I mean, there is going to have to be a reopening. The American populace does not like it, although I would add right now from a market perspective, back in 2018, the markets were very much more concerned about the shutdown than they are today.
How true.
I was talking to our equity strategists this morning, and they were yawning about it. So,
Right.
you know, I don't think the market really, maybe the American populace doesn't care as much about the shutdown right now, but eventually that attitude will change, and they will have to figure out what a solution is. And the thing that I think is most interesting is that I think the framework of the solution is already there. It's an agreement to have a vote on these Obamacare subsidies in
right.
the future, and then they reopen
We
the
could have
government.
told you that last week.
But they got to go through the motions.
Absolutely. But I also, they think that about the markets because they're listening to you. You've sat here and told us repeatedly, this is not an economic event. When it reopens, everybody gets their pay. I realize there are ancillary businesses that are not part of that, and that's heartbreaking. But how long would this need to go on for the market to actually feel like it had a front row seat here? I realize another jobs report might be a problem, but what do you think?
So I had a client call this morning with Anna Wong, our chief U.S. economics
The best in the business.
from Bloomberg Economics, and her analysis said 3 weeks is when, if you have a 3-week shutdown,
Okay.
that is when the unemployment rate begins to tick up.
Got it.
I corresponded that analysis with our equity strategists, and at that point, they said, we're going to start paying attention more to this. Because, you know, from the data perspective, you're going to lose all of October's data. You know, we have a Fed decision. The traders aren't going to like that.
Well, yeah.
But also from the economic perspective, that's when the headline risk and fear comes back into things because, you know, there is just this presumption, and I would agree with this presumption, but there's this presumption that Congress is going to figure it out. They'll figure it out within 2 weeks, and then they'll, you know, go on to other matters. But if Congress doesn't figure this out and we go into November, I think the story could change a little bit.
So Blue Oyster Cult is upset? I didn't know about this. We got a statement from the band. Let's clarify a few things. It says Blue Oyster Cult was not contacted or notified in advance. The copyright in the song Don't Fear the Reaper is 100% owned by Sony Music. Blue Oyster Cult has no legal right to either authorize or withhold usage, which is 100% controlled by Sony Music, in caps. Think that's coming down?
When you said that, I was afraid that they were complaining about our references
Well,
to it.
sometimes they do that.
But, you know, I think, honestly, when it comes to all of this is that, you know, expect more rhetoric from the White House that is just designed to put pressure on Democrats because ultimately, like I said before, both sides think that they have the moral high ground here.
Yes.
And when both sides have the moral high ground,
It's a true standoff.
it's like my children refusing to say sorry to each other. You know, they just stand there and they just wait for dad to figure it out. And,
Yeah.
you know, we just have to go through the motions.
Well, it's like this show. We're waiting for Dad to figure it out. Did you coach soccer this weekend?
I coached flag football.
Flag football. Who did you win?
We did. We ran a no huddle offense until
Hey,
the
how
other
about
team
that, right?
Yep.
I hear James is running odds on you guys now. This is becoming a pretty big deal. So you're back to work today. Some people are back to work without pay. You've pointed out 2 inflection points here, 2 dates. The 10th is when feds missed the first cycle. The 15th is the military pay cycle.
Yep.
They will be both made whole when it reopens, correct?
Well, I'd say 100% of the time. I'd say 99% before any other government shutdown.
Yeah.
I'd be at like a 90%. And look, that's not an official ad. That's just my thinking.
Yes.
You can't guarantee it, but I do think
But
that
that's how
I
this
think
tends to
everybody
work.
Yeah, I think everybody would get
It's
their
that
pay.
second deadline after we saw the president down there in Norfolk talking to the sailors yesterday. I don't know what the exact quote is, but I'll make sure you get every penny that you're missing. Lawmakers don't want that to have to be back pay.
No, and that's why I think Speaker Johnson is keeping the House Republicans out right now because, look, when they come here to Washington, part of their job is to talk to the media. And when you have media asking them questions, including how are you getting paid?
Yeah,
But when the military is not getting paid, then you get some awkward moments. So keeping them back in their districts, resolve some of that. And so, but at the end of the day, there are going to be stories coming out about military members not getting paid. And I'll just say that like the number one question we got this morning was, will the TSA keep operating? Yes, they're going to keep
That's
operating.
the number one question.
We had a
by
lot of
Bloomberg
clients going on
subscribers.
business trips
How
this
about
weekend,
that? Well,
so-
listen, those are our people.
Yeah.
If you're an air traffic controller, you're being forced to work 60 hours a week without a paycheck, though, at some point.
That's
here, right?
correct. Same with the TSA agents. Our advice to them was obviously be a little bit nicer when you're on the line.
That's good.
But, you know, when it comes to the government workers, you know, the biggest, you know, impact we have on this is just really, do they get their back pay? And from the contractor perspective, we're not seeing it really in the large defense contractor space, or even just the large contractors like Sodexo and so forth, because most of their government contracts are on a 2 to 3 year cycle.
Okay.
So yes, if you are trying to negotiate a new contract right now, nobody's working, you can't do that. But you're not going to see this really reflect the contractor equity prices, I think, until we get into this like 1 to 2, 3 month shutdown. If that's the case, then I think you're going to begin to see headline risk.
Fascinating. What do you think that Navy display cost yesterday? That's all paid for separately, right?
Oh, I wouldn't even know. I'd have
Gas alone must, I mean, I can't imagine the bill. It must have been very cool to be there as well. But when you think about lawmakers at Sea Island Resort playing pickleball and golf and drinking wine and taking money from donors, there wasn't even a suggestion that that be canceled last weekend. Do the politics around that not matter to people? That would be the ultimate example of people not caring that we shut down.
Well, I think we have a lot of time between now and November. I mean, if you think about when we go into the voting booth on November, are we going to be thinking about what happened back in October of 2025? Yeah. I would just argue, and obviously I'm not a political scientist, but I would just think that most of the ideas that are within the minds of voters are within 3 to 5 months prior to the election. So I think, the political calculus of having that event in Sea Island is, look, we still need to raise money because it's going to cost money to run for the election.
That's right.
The government's going to reopen soon, and any political price we pay, and this even goes to the party that ultimately loses less on the shutdown or loses more on the shutdown. When the Republicans had this issue back in 2013, Senator Ted Cruz led this crusade to shut the government down. The Republicans did pretty well in 2014. So, we still have lots of time.
Well, we sure do, and we're lucky to have you with us here. Nathan Dean, Bloomberg Intelligence, your podcast just dropped, I'm guessing, or it's about to. Find it on the Balance of Power podcast feed and get Nathan's Monday briefing just like all of his clients do. Fascinating. If the Smithsonian closes, you can't see Fonzie's jacket. You can always get this guy and the BI Fleece Vest. Thanks to our friend Nathan Dean. We'll assemble the panel coming up next. Rick Davis and Jeannie Shanzano are with us on the Monday edition of Balance of Power, only on Bloomberg.